So most recently, the Rivian CEO came out with some rather interesting information regarding the potential arrival of the R2 and the R3. Now, of course, we already know that the R1 is on the market. And so with the R2 and R3 coming, these are more likely to be sedans and sports cars. And I'm a little bit skeptical about it because I'll get into more about this in the video if you watch till the end. However, if you guys are new here, like the video, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be up to date on the latest information coming out. And without further ado, let's start up the video. So starting off with a little bit of history, the Rivian brand has been on the market for about 13 years. They started off with electric sports cars, and that sort of was how they got their foot into the market, but they sort of wanted to go for the more differentiation approach on the market, which is where they essentially ended up making SUVs, which is the R1 brand that I would like to assume, rather familiar with. Now, within that R1 brand, you have the R1S and the R1T. So the R1S is the SUV, meanwhile the R1T is more of the trucks. However, there are also some other cars, or I guess you can say vans in this case, that they've come out with, because if you guys got your packages delivered by Amazon, you're going to notice that some of the trucks these days look somewhat different to how they've looked in the past. And that's actually because Amazon have teamed up with Rivian, where essentially Rivian specifically makes commercial sized vans in order for Amazon to use to deliver their vehicles. So I could say that that's actually one way for them to get into the market and stay in the market, because once you're able to corner a specific facet of the market, which again comes to delivery and commercial van production, I would like to say that there are probably no other brands that are going to compete with Rivian when it comes to that sort of thing. Now, for the R2 and the R3, going off of the podcast, we're more likely going to be seeing sports cars and sedans. So they're going to be smaller, they're going to be cheaper. However, there are some interesting bits of information that I'm finding out when it comes to Rivian. And one of the biggest pieces of information is the fact that it does not have Apple CarPlay. And so now 80%, I would like to say maybe even more percentage of vehicles on the market have Apple CarPlay. So for Rivian to say that they're boldly going to be going a totally different route is a little bit bold. I'm not sure how that's going to bode with their sales necessarily. Despite the fact that they don't have Apple CarPlay, I'm quite curious to see how likely people are going to be loyal to Rivian to still want to get their trucks and their SUVs and potentially their sedans with the R2s and R3s and maybe their sports cars without having the feature of Apple CarPlay, considering it's almost a staple in most new vehicles these days. Another aspect when it comes to, I guess, the bad news, the cons, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that when you look at the stocks, Rivian stocks specifically, they seem like they're not really doing so well. So you can see they started off really high, and over time they've sort of just gone down. And so that begs the question, how are they going to get the money in order to produce the R2s and the R3s? Now you could say they have cornered a section of the market when it comes to the commercial vans that they've partnered with Amazon for. But again, where's the money going to come from? Because they've already pumped in a lot of money as far as the marketing and the general production of the R1 series or the R1 models. And so now looking at some of the reviews of people, the Bishman says, I really like Rivian and I want them to succeed, but RJ's insistence on not allowing Apple CarPlay to be an option for the driver to use is incredibly short-sighted, given that over 80% of current vehicles allow their use and are widely liked by those who use the apps. Shouldn't owners have the choice? And to that, I'd actually totally agree. Actually, I did touch on some of those points early in the video, because the fact that they're not having Apple CarPlay is significantly going to test the loyalty of the customer, whether they're going to want to have that inconvenience and deal with that inconvenience when they drive their vehicle. And then Ice8294 says, I'd love to own a Rivian pickup truck or van should they decide to make one, but not having traditional physical dash buttons for basic functions and refusing to include Apple CarPlay are both deal breakers. Again, more of the initial review that I touched on just a second ago, because it seems with a lot of people being used to Apple CarPlay, they really don't want to have to break from the cycle of using Apple CarPlay simply so they could get an electric SUV, especially considering the fact that Tesla now have Apple CarPlay, Lucid have Apple CarPlay, and I can only bet that there are a bunch of other car companies with their electric vehicles that are going to be having Apple CarPlay as well. So then CGI 8239 says, Tesla Playbook move. You can't build and deliver the current models properly, so let's distract everyone with future models they can give us deposits for, and then in parentheses, future models that they may never see. And I think that's a pretty good concern to have. Now, if you tie that with the fact that their stocks aren't doing so great, maybe they're trying to generate some buzz so people can, you could say, sign up for the wait list for the R2 and R3 so they can use that money. But again, with the R1, we don't even see that many on the market. Are people going to really be more willing to buy the R2 and the R3? These are questions that we need answers for. And then JBW says, alongside what essentially I said earlier on, love the Rivian product, but right now there's not enough of it. RJ needs to get production moving if he wants the Rivian to survive to R2 and R3. Now, of course, tying it in with the stock prices, again, this is a concern people have. Are these cars actually going to be are they actually going to make it to production, or is it just all talk? Because let's be honest, when it comes to Tesla, people are still waiting for the Cybertruck, and I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to be coming anytime soon, so that's again another thing to be waiting for. And then finally, to wrap it up, we have CDJ8210, who says, Rivian is burning through cash like a drunken sailor. And of course, we can see that when it comes to the production of the R1, specifically the R1S and the R1T, and how much they've put into the production of these vehicles. Are they actually going to have enough for the R2 and the R3? Now, these are all valid criticisms and valid questions that a lot of people, potential customers, just people who are curious, skeptics if you will, have about the vehicle and about the brand as a whole. And it's something that I have questions about. So this is something that we should be finding more about in the near future as things develop. I'd like to follow this story with you guys. If you guys are actually curious about finding about more, let me know in the comments below. That's that for this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.